Appreciate you streaming in with us here on Verge 365 on a victorious Monday. You got McMullen, McDonald, and our bud, Chris Franklin from NJ.com, NJ Media as well. Indoors today. Now, we had Les Bowen on earlier, and he said, oh, it's nice outside. I thought for sure if we got Les outside, we were going to get you outside. What's got you inside today, Franklin?
It is windy. I don't know if you guys, it is windy. I mean, all of a sudden, I want to go like, hey, so we're here, and there's no turkeys dropping or anything like that, WKRP style. I don't want anything like that going on. So, yeah.
Nice. WKRP reference.
I'm older than that look,
I feel. Turkey Day reference. So, let's start with the running game because Jalen Hurts, Miles Sanders, Chris Franklin, Jody McDonald. I think everybody had 100 yards yesterday. Why is this team so good running the football, Chris? I've been asking it. Now, obviously, it has to do with everything. The offensive line, the quarterback, the running back, Miles Sanders having a career year. But if you were to lean on one thing more than the others, what is the most important part? That's college game talk, 363. You don't do that in the NFL. Why is this team so good at it?
You know, it was college. Like, the thing is, they didn't run the score up enough because they still, I think there's questions about who's the number one team still, I think it was. But I think overall the reason is going to be because Jeff Stoutland. I think when you look at the job that he's done, look at the job that he's done with this offensive line, when you look at the way that they're able to execute, and he's also, you got to give him credit because he is the run game coordinator as well, too. I mean, we know Shane Steichen calls the plays. You know, Nick Sirianni has a heavy hand in it. But when it comes to marrying them together and helping devise the game plan to have success, you got to give credit to Stoutland. And boy, it showed yesterday the way they were able to get some of those lanes. You know, you're right. We could have had another 100 yards ourselves. You know, maybe we'd be in position to get a contract extension too, like Miles Sanders. So I think overall, a lot of the credit has to go to him.
I think what the Eagle fans can be most buoyed by after yesterday's win is the fact that they can beat you different ways. John and I both agree they need to get Goddard back. I thought Stoll had a good night blocking shoot. I even saw Jackson throw a nice block. The fill-in tight ends, if they can get the job done blocking, even if they need to find their passing yards elsewhere, I think they'll be okay. Love to get Goddard back. They will get Goddard back at some time, but until then, I think they'll be all right. They can beat you a couple different ways, Chris, whether it's just running it down your throat, giving them Miles for 150, Jalen going for 150. If they have to pass the ball, Devonta and AJ, if AJ can hold on to the ball, a couple of fumbles have me nervous over the last couple of weeks. They can basically pick and choose the way they want to move the ball on offense right now, can they not?
They can. The main thing, as long as they make sure they execute, I keep hearing that word execute. The problem is it's true because when you look at the way that they're able to scheme up their guys to be open, there's no question about that. And that's what I think separates a lot of the really good coordinators and a lot of good coaches from when it comes to the Adam Gases of the world, where these guys can scheme it up, but if they're not effectively teaching it, they're not effectively making sure these guys are in the right positions to do what they do. And if the players aren't the right fit for what they're trying to do, that's where you get it. And I look at the way it all starts, I think offensively, we look at Jalen Hurts, the way he's playing. I thought he'd have a good season. He's playing beyond my expectations when it comes to that. He's going to shoot past things at the stat lines I thought he'd have. And you look at what he's able to do now and grasp that and continue to develop. I think it starts there defensively. I think it's a three-layer type deal. I know it's hard to say that after they put up a 33 on them, but when you look at what they were able to do, like in the base sense of what they're able to do when it comes to getting takeaways and stuff like that, I think that's key too. But I mean, offensively, yeah, it's tough to stop this team right now. And I would not want to be a defensive coordinator trying to come up with a game plan.
Yeah, and it was a positive because they had gone through a little bit of a lull, Chris, when it really started in Houston, then Washington, Indianapolis, which was nip and tuck. So it was good to see the offense getting back to being a little bit more explosive, even without Dallas Goedert, no matter how they did it. But all you can do with a 10-1 team is nitpick, right? I mean, they're 10-1, so we give them all the credit, all the accolades, but how can you run for 363 and Green Bay still in the game late? Because they needed a Jake Elliott field goal, which is a pretty big kick for a guy who never kicks. The Eagles are so effective he's kicked 11 field goals this year. The guy never gets to kick. The Green Bay was a little bit too close for comfort. Special teams, defense, short fields. Why was Green Bay in this game?
That's the one right there. You hit it nail on the head. And every week it seems like even if they have a good game offensively, defensively, it seems like some special teams does something where you're like, what's going on like in there? And I think that was the main thing right now. When you look at that, so many short fields that the Green Bay had to work with, and sometimes they got bailed out when the defense did its job there. Sometimes it didn't hold up as well too. I look at the way when you're giving your opponent around, this is not official, but they let your opponent around start at a 40 every time or midfield, and it's like, okay, defense,
40 would have been nice.
Yeah,
40 would have been nice.
At the end there, where especially get that 53-yard kickoff return, like that's why. Like I put a lot of that yesterday on the special teams themselves, because I think they just put them in a bad position. They were behind the 8 ball to begin with, especially when starting those field positions. But I probably say that would be number one, and then two, we started to see the guard at the end there with the Gardner Johnson not being there. I think he probably has a better shot of stopping Christian Watson on that play. I mean, good luck trying to stop him with that speed, but I think he gives you a better chance because like the safeties, Epson, Blankenship took bad pursuit routes there. But listen, man, I put this squarely on special teams. I really do.
Yeah, they did not play well on specials for sure yesterday. And I give you another guy. And I know I'm going to get crushed by Eagle fans for putting this guy on at least even partial blast. But for the second consecutive week, A.J. Brown had a bad fumble. Last week, Johnny Mack gave him a pass because he said it was a perfect punch out. I questioned it because I thought he made a bad move. He either A, runs by people, or B, runs over people. He doesn't stop to try and put a move on, but that's exactly what he did against Indianapolis and coughed up the football. He got it punched out again last night. At least he was trying to physically go through a guy, which I like, but you got to be able to hold on to the football. No, he was sick during the week. Do we just give him a pass because he's A.J. Brown and he was as great as he was for the first 7 games of the season? Or is it fair to critique him because he's lost 2 pretty bad fumbles these last 2 weeks?
I think it's fair game to do so, especially when it comes to, listen, we always hear this team's harp on or protecting the ball. I mean, we saw 2 weeks ago those posters go up there going about the ball control.
That was the first mistake of the year by this staff, Chris.
Ever since then, it seems like ever since then, it's just been like, what is going on here? The ball's been dropped on the ground all the time. But I think it's a fair thing. I mean, if sick or not, I think if you're able to be on the field, I think it's one of those things where if you're able to be on the field, you have to be able to abide by everything that you're asked to do. And one of the things that A.J. Brown and any other ball carriers asked to do is protect that football. And I think if you ask him, when you look at that, it's like, he's gonna. Yeah, he'll take full responsibility of that. And there's no way to really do it because I thought the whole entire nation saw that fumble go into the ground. But yeah, it's so concerning now. And I bet you right now, Mike Vrabel and those Tennessee Titans are showing the film with the last 2 weeks going. And besides having the intimate knowledge of him from his time there, they're showing film like, hey guys, this is how we can get our ball back. So it's concerning. I know we talked about books a couple of weeks ago about how to beat the Eagles for that, but I think there's a book out there now on how to try to get the ball from A.J. Brown, and teams are going to continue to do that.
Yeah, it is A.J. Brown week. A.J.'s not wanting to talk about Tennessee much. He's going to have to this week, so it's going to be interesting. Obviously, things didn't end well with him there, but we'll have plenty of time to talk about the Titans as the week goes on. When I look at this defense, a lot of I mean, people don't like Jonathan Gannon in this town. So, hey, they gave up 33 points to the Packers. Christian Watson gets loose for 63 yards. You mentioned Reed Blankenship with the poor angle. When you look at the defense, Chris, in this particular game, Jody was concerned a little bit with the run support. A.J. Dillon, I think they had a really difficult time with really physical player. That maybe doesn't bode that well with Derrick Henry coming in. Concerns at all with the defense?
I think when it comes to even with all the additions to, I think they're still ironing out the gap responsibilities because there were a couple times where guys were either spinning themselves out of the play or shooting in the wrong gaps. And next thing you know, there's a cutback lane on the backside. Like, is it the front side defensive line guys? Like they were actually doing a lot. It was those backside guys where like they're like, oh, let me spin over here and try to shoot the gap this way. And they guessed wrong. And then there's all of a sudden you see Dillon running back for 600 yards, cutting back and throwing shoulders, getting to there. And that's the Achilles heel, I think, when you look at his defense. They're not the biggest defense. So when you have your defensive linemen making the wrong decisions up front, it's going to expose how the size of those linebackers and obviously defensive backs, because obviously linemen, are huge. So I guess going on those guys. So I think when you look overall at when you're doing that, I'm concerned in that aspect. I think secondary, I really don't have any. For me, the secondary, I feel it's okay. I think the run game pursues that. I'm worried about. I don't get into my predictions. I still got to write and everything, but I'm very concerned coming up about this Titans team because all you're going to get for probably 70% of the time is going to be a run play, and then that just makes everything else, especially when trying to play action pass, more effective. And I'm shocked and I'm shocked that the Packers didn't do this more. If I see Linval Joseph on the field right there, I'm throwing the ball first or second down because they're not. That's to me, that's the way for I'm going to have more success that way too. And you almost have to work backwards against this Eagles defense. You really do. And I'm shocked they didn't do that more. I thought they would have had more success because they had less people on the second level. So it's going to be a lot. I'm concerned about this. And hey, if there's a potential matchup in the playoffs where you're maybe playing the 49ers in the NFC Championship game, I'm concerned about that now too because of the way that this defense is shown when it comes to trying to stop the run.
Know that we're kind of jumping ahead here and we don't want to move quickly past an impressive offensive win against the Packers, but Tennessee to get A.J. Brown. How about Jim Schwartz? What kind of role does Jim Schwartz have with Tennessee? He retired and then came out of retirement to go to work for Tennessee. He's Johnny Mac's boy. J Mac, you better get a couple of quotes from Schwartz leading into this weekend's matchup. What kind of a impact does he have in this week's game? Because he coached. There's still some Eagle players on this defense that Jim Schwartz actually coached when he was last year in Philly.
You know that Spider-Man meme where they have them pointing at each other? I really feel like it's where you have Jonathan Gannon and Jim Schwartz pointing at each other because it's the same type of philosophy as they don't want to get deep. They let Schwartz lets his defensive lineman, I think, go a little bit more than what Gannon wants to do. So I think there's that one. He probably knows about Fletch. He probably knows about Fletch. He knows about BG, what they like to do, what they're not comfortable with, and he could pass it off to the offensive guys. And in a brief conversation, they can set it up that way. But I think overall, when you look at it's a lot different staff. These guys are different players than what they were when he was here, even though it was a couple of years ago. And I think he'll just enjoy coming back to Philly. I mean, he's well revered by this organization from his time here and helping him get a Super Bowl. But if anything, I think it's going to be one of the things where it's like, all right, let's see what you do. I would be surprised if we see a lot more safe play when it comes against try to stop Jalen Hurts, but it's going to be tough.
Yeah, I'm interested. Obviously, Jim is not the defensive coordinator. That is Shane Bowen. Mike Vrabel, obviously, is a defensive guy as well. It's a very good defense in Tennessee as a whole. I think it starts with Jeffrey Simmons, who was a tremendous, tremendous player. This is a game I've had circled for a while because I think, the old axiom, styles make fights. I don't think this is a good style matchup for the Eagles. I think this is almost a game, Chris, where you got to go win it offensively because, in other words, the Eagles are so explosive offensively, at least when they're cooking like they were against Green Bay. Teams like Tennessee can't beat you if you play at that level because they're not going to beat you in a shootout. But they can shorten the game, sort of like what Washington did, and they can win it that way. So I kind of look at this upcoming game and I say to myself, it's not about the defense as much as about the offense. The offense has to not allow Tennessee to play the type of game that they want to play. Does that make sense at all?
Yeah, because they're going to have to maximize every position they have. Because with the way that they run the ball, this could be the offense. It is very plausible the offense only has about 7 possessions, 6, 7 possessions in that game because they can reel off long drive, methodical drives just by running it in the old school 3 yards to the cloud dust manner with Derrick Henry. It's just like basically there's a battering ram trying to hit against his defensive line, just wearing it down to the late third, fourth quarter, and they can really pick up his chunk yard. So it's one of those things where is it fair to the offense a little bit? Like when you have that? No, but it's gonna be one of those things where you're going to rely on basically they're going to play near perfect in sense when they get the ball because the way that the defense when it comes to the run defense right now is we know it's going to be tough unless they do a lot of run blitzing, which will be way out of Jonathan Gannon's MO. That's the only way I see you possibly stopping them, and that's going to be tough. So it's going to be maximizing every single opportunity they have. It's going to be one of those games where they probably have to score 4 or 5 of their 7 possessions in order to win that. And that is doable, but it's going to be tough.
All right. I said this with Les. I said it with John. Now I'm going to say it with you. Well, let's give Miles Sanders some credit here. We know that Jalen Hurts did what he did, and it was all-time, never seen before type stuff. For the Eagles, who have had great running quarterbacks before, but he sets the record for most yards ever by a quarterback. Oh, by the way, Miles Sanders runs for the most yards he does ever in his career, and nobody notices because we're all watching and talking about Jalen Hurts. I need a prediction out of you, Franklin. I'm going to throw some names your way. Miles Sanders, Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, Tony Pollard, David Montgomery, Kareem Hunt, Jamal Williams, Jeff Wilson Jr., Devin Singletary. All these guys are free agents at the end of the year. Those are some of the best running backs in the National Football League. And the Eagles don't have a number 1 back under contract right now because Miles is their number 1 back and he's not under contract. Who's going to be the number 1 back? One of those guys or a to be determined in the draft running back for the Philadelphia Eagles at the start of next year?
Ooh, that's a good question. I still think it's Sanders. I really do. I think it's going to be the market's going to be. I'm not going to use that reference. So yeah, I think the market's going to be flooded with a lot of running backs on the market.
You also have a lot of teams that need running backs. If all those guys are leaving their team, that means a whole bunch of teams are going to need running backs.
Yeah, but it's going to be.
Nobody wants to pay running backs though. They don't want to. That's why they're all in the market. Yeah.
Yep. And everybody goes like, oh, we can get the younger version for a lot less, and we can pick them up, get them on a 3-year deal or like a 4th, 5th round pick salary. So I think I think a lot of that. I think there'll be something worked out, and that's the problem. If he was in a year where it wasn't so many running backs coming out, I think he's putting up things where it could be lucrative enough for that position. The problem is going to be so many people there that I think I wouldn't be surprised if he signed like a 2-year deal, 2 or 3-year deal, or maybe 2 with an option, something like that. Where it goes, hey, you know what? Hey, I want to go and get another big contract if I can, if I continue to play well too. But I think it's going to be Sanders. I think I was probably was like Sanders and a back that's drafted again, despite they having Gainwell and Scott. Sanders is going to be the lead back coming here, I think, in 2023.
Don't forget Trey Sermon.
Yeah, I'm shocked he has not gotten more run than he's gotten this year. That yesterday was a Trey Sermon type game, and it didn't activate him. I really thought it would be that type of game for him, but
yeah, hey, I always enjoy the Eagles inactives every week, Chris, because it's like a sermon from the Book of Job every week. Trey Sermon, Ian Book, Josh Job, Josh Sills thrown in there. I got to figure Josh Sills, but anyway, I digress. I want to talk about the guys. Jordan Davis is eligible to come off IR this week. Devonta Maddox next week. And then Dallas Goedert, I think, is week 14. Which one are we going to see first? Is it just going to be as simple as Jordan Davis this week? Or is it going to be a little bit more complicated?
The way I saw Jordan Davis, like we were waiting to go to the press conference room and
Yeah.
locker room,
Yeah, I
saw him
saw the
jogging off
video.
the field, and he's doing his little light jog, and like that ankle was bothering him too much when he's down. Maybe a win helps that out, where you're like, oh, we feel great. Okay, he just runs that way. But I wonder how much of it is going to be like getting him back into playing shape as well too. I wouldn't be surprised if it's we see the following, let's see Davis and Max come back at the same time. And I thought I saw Max coming out the locker room briefly. They just hooked it back up and then got out before we were allowed back into. But I think it's one of those things where we'll start to see him. I see them coming back at the same time, and I'm actually kind of looking forward to seeing the combination of who's the odd man out in that defensive tackle rotation. That we'll learn a lot about that too, because boy, you got some decisions to make, and will we see one of those guys' names next to the Book of Job, the Book of Sills, and everything else too? But it's going to be tough on that one too. But I think it's going to be Davis and Max coming back at the same week.
All right. Eagles did get 3 sacks last night. One of them came at a very opportune time. The other 2 were kind of, oh, by the way. We're talking about the defensive line and the fact that Joseph and Sue were great last week. They were part of it last night. Neither one of them a really big play. Eagles pass rush good enough right now. They did get 3 sacks, so I don't want to make it sound like they did nothing, but I thought Rodgers had time to sit back there and make plays. Jordan Love did as well. He looked pretty good coming off their bench. Are they getting enough pass rush right now for your liking, Chris Franklin?
I think I want to see more from that second unit. I think that first unit, I think Josh Sweat's he's quietly playing some really, really good football right now. And I look at that when I think when he's on the field and you have whoever or whatever 2 defensive tackles you want to use, and they have some. I have no problem with that first line there. It's when you get to that second line and you start looking at the pass rush that does help. It helps when you don't give up 6-7 yards on the first down or second down, and then you play like 3rd and 3, something like that for it. And then you limit your options. You're not getting the pass rush there because I think you're playing a guessing game if it's going to be a run or a pass. But I just want to see more out of that second defensive line unit getting the rush that way. That way has me worried because you can't play these guys 60, 70 snaps a game in order to try to generate that because you're not going to get the pass rush that way because they're retired. So if they can find a way to get that second rush, so some more pass rush from that second unit defensive line rush, then I think it feels a little bit more comfortable there.
If we just talked about some injuries, Chris, but we didn't talk about Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. So we have to see how serious that particular injury is. I thought Reed Blankenship did a really nice job under difficult circumstances, but I don't know if he's ready to play consistent snaps in a week in, week out basis. I think, people will start to notice that he's on the field, and you already saw it a little bit with the Christian Watson play, took a really bad angle. Josiah Scott was out. I think it was ironic that Scott and Blankenship got the goat balls, and those are the issues, really. Darius Slay wanted his goat ball. It happened to go to Scott and Blankenship, who, by the way, first interceptions for both of their NFL careers are Aaron Rodgers. Unbelievable. But I don't think that's good long term. Chauncey's got to be out there, right? That depth is a concern at safety.
I feel we talked about this last time when it came to a certain other safety, but I feel more comfortable at the free safety spot than I do strong safety when it comes to there. Listen, the fact that I wonder how long it's going to be because I thought the way he was walking off the field and the thing, I thought he was like, he was out and he may be done for the season. In fact, they say he's questionable return. I was like, wait, what? In the ribs? Okay.
He was in a lot of pain.
Yeah.
I thought it was a stinger at first.
He tore his like groin muscle or something like that. The way he was walking off was like, oh no, that's in the way he bent. Was like, oh, that's bad. But when you look at the ribs and everything, they need him back. I mean, you're losing the guy who leads the league in interceptions right now, and a guy who's shifted over to that safety role pretty well and a ball hawk and makes teams think about when you throw him in that area. It makes sure you better be on target because if not, he's going to be around there to be a threat to take it. And just like anything else, when you have a young guy, there's not really a book yet on Reed Blankenship, and I think there's a little bit of book building on Josiah Scott, and thought you saw that on one of the touchdowns where they look like Randall Cobb. They attacked him with Randall Cobb on the inside. There's a nice play design. But I think overall, if you begin to start rate Blankenship, I feel a little bit more comfortable with the free safety spot and having Epps shift over just in case, because basically a lot of times you're playing that center field and you're helping in run support. And the thing that surprised me was you never want to see a defensive back up there with tackles, but he was up there. He tied with the team leading tackles last night too. So I was like, all right, he's getting his nose dirty in that too. So if it's a short stint, 2-3 weeks, I can live with it. If it's season ending, then I'm like, that's alarms are going off.
All right, Chris, I mentioned this last week here on the show and earlier in this show. Did we potentially see the last Aaron Rodgers at the link green versus green appearance? And that means Packers against the Eagles.
You might go.
I'm like Johnny Mac here.
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting his career is over and done with, but that he could be somewhere else other than Green Bay. So Brett Favre leave. Why the hell can't we see Aaron Rodgers leave? Could this have been the last Aaron Rodgers versus Eagles matchup at the link?
I think when it comes, I gotta look at the way the schedule rolls out. I forget who they were lined. I know it wouldn't line up. Actually, at this rate, they wouldn't line up. I think it'd be the Vikings this year. So I'm not sure home or 2024 and beyond. I think it's a good possibility with the way he's talking. I think he takes his victory tour next year. I wouldn't be surprised if he did that because that way he can get all the gifts, the everything else. Hey, we'll give you a bronze Liberty Bell like they give the Pope that one time. Give something like that on his way out, or something like that, or whatever. If they go there, what have you.
I think he takes his victory tour in another uniform, the way Brady has. I think he's getting out of Green Bay this year. I think he's going to continue to play, but I don't know that it's going to be as a Packer.
He wants to get the hell away from Matt LaFleur.
I wonder if that's the thing where LaFleur is the one that gets out because even though it's Rodgers and everything else, even LaFleur is a good young mind and everything. One of the things was, well, we know he's done it for us in the past. Maybe LaFleur is the one that gets kicked out. And they try to appease him. Who knows? Maybe Nathaniel Hackett will be available again, and then he becomes the head coach.
Oh, wow.
Nathaniel Hackett's going to have a tough time getting a job pushing a broom in an NFL.
Let Russ cook. Will you let Russ cook? Now his kitchen's burning and everything else, and he's in trouble.
Yikes.
At C. Franklin News, NJ.com, Chris. End it there. Nick Sirianni. I mean, you see all these coaches, Nathaniel Hackett. We were talking about Matt Eberflus. I don't know what the hell's going on in Chicago. And they coach together, obviously, in Indy. Man, 10-1, and you think about the 2-5 start as a rookie. So from that point forward, this guy just keeps winning games. The Eagles, I don't want to say it was plan A or plan B or plan C. I don't know what it was. But Jeffrey Lurie's had this history of maybe not getting the guy he originally wanted when it comes to his coaching changes, but getting the best guy. He's done it again with Nick Sirianni. This is pretty impressive.
Yeah, I'm kind of getting Andy Reid vibes when it comes to Nick Sirianni. I mean, just obviously he doesn't have the menu board and doesn't have the Hawaiian shirts and everything. But when you look at the way that he's basically having success this early and the success coming out of nowhere, and especially offensively, when you look at the way they're doing it, I just get those vibes a lot from him. And the one thing I think is going to be important, I think he can continue to have success, but he has to avoid something which happened with Reed, was that he has to make sure he continues to develop the staff behind him, because this coaching staff is going to be rated next year.
Yes.
Especially this coaching staff is going to be completely rated, I think, that one. So, and we all know what happened. I mean, that was a Hall of Fame coaching staff. And look at what Andy Reid had when he first was hired. Now, as the years went along, you can count Doug Peterson toward the end because, hey, he was mine too. Look at this, he got Super Bowl. But I think that's the trap that Nick Sirianni has to avoid that Reed did. As long as he
Chris, he's already doing it though. Marcus Brady's already doing it.
I think that's more of it's looking after his boy, because I would love to get Frank Reich in a room right now and just go, hey, just spill. Was that your idea to get rid of Marcus Brady, or was that from Jim Irsay?
No,
that's what I want to say. Like
not.
more and more stuff like that to get that, because I want to see how much of Irsay had an influence in that offense.
Oh, that was all Irsay.
Oh yeah,
no way Frank Reich is better. No.
We all agree on that. Hey, you Pennsylvania Eagle fans, be thankful, because this was 1992. You'd have to get in your car and drove over the Ben Franklin Bridge if you wanted to read Chris Franklin. Now all you got to do is punch him up on your computer. You used to have to be able to drive across. You couldn't get that newspaper. And God bless the 1.3% out there that's still buying newspapers. No, we get them online. We read them online on a day in, day out basis. He does a great job for NJ.com. Chris Franklin, thank you much. We will talk to you again next week.
Hey, thank you guys so much. And buy the newspapers. They're still relevant.
Yes.
Thank you guys so much.
Nobody's buying